Hi, welcome to my video on the inverse of a parabola, part 3. Number 1, find the inverse f to the negative 1 of x if the f of x is the negative of x plus 2 all squared, and we have a condition that x is greater than or equal to 2. So that means that we have a parabola, so the vertex of the parabola, if you let x be negative 2, that means y is 0, so there's a plus 0 on the end here. And also, because it's a negative, that means the parabola is opening down. So that means that the y value starts at 0, and it's going to go down, so it's less than or equal to 0. That's because of the negative, it's opening down. So the x, we're looking at x is greater than or equal to negative 2, and y is less than or equal to 0. So to find the inverse, we let the f of x equal y. We switch the y to an x and an x to a y. We multiply each side by negative 1. Negative x equals positive y plus 2 all squared. And we do the plus minus, we do the root of each side. So this is plus minus root of negative x equals y plus 2. And so we got plus minus the root of a negative x minus 2 equals y. And so f to the negative 1 of x is equal to plus minus the root of negative x plus 2. But let's check. In the f of x, the x is greater than or equal to negative 2, and the y right here is less than or equal to 0. So that means in f to the negative 1 of x, the x becomes a y, so this is x and y, so the y, or the x becomes a y, so the y is greater than or equal to negative 2, and the x is, the range here is domain here, so it's x is less than or equal to 0. So notice that we have greater than. Right here I have a plus minus, so that means that the f of negative 1 to the x, the inverse, y is greater than negative 2, that means it's positive, so we're dealing with the root of a negative x plus 2. Because that's y is going up in the inverse, then we deal with the positive one. Not here is both of them, but because of this condition here, if x is greater than or equal to negative 2, that means in the inverse y is going to be greater than or equal to negative 2. So that inverse, we deal with the plus. So the inverse of f to the negative 1 of x is root of negative x plus 2. So this is going in the f of x. So this is the f of x. So we got negative. So the root of negative x plus 2. Root of negative x, did I say? I said that was a minus there, no? That's a minus. These simple errors seem to make these simple errors. That's a minus. So this is a minus. This is a minus. Sorry about that. That's a negative. Plus 2 all squared. Again, this is plus 2. That's a minus 2. That's a minus 2. That's a minus 2, minus 2, minus 2. And so it's the negative. We simplify the inside first by bed mass. That gives us the root of negative x squared. So the root of a negative x squared is negative x. And we end up with an x. So the root of a negative x squared is the negative x, and the negative of a negative is a positive. Now we have the inverse the f of x is negative root of x plus 2 all squared. So the f of x is right here. There it is. So we sub that into the inverse. So the inverse is the root. You got to be careful now. This is negative x. So the negative of this is the negative of x plus 2 squared. So there's this bracket right here, covers that, and minus 2. So in here, we do the negative of this bracket, so that makes it the square root. The negative of negative is positive, so that's x plus 2 squared minus 2. The square root of this square is x plus 2 minus 2. And so that gives us an x. Okay, that's one done. Let's do another one very similar. Find the inverse of f of x if f of x is equal to x squared plus 1, where x is less than or equal to 0. And again, let's look at the vertex. The vertex, when x is 0, y is 1. And because it's positive, that means the parabola is opening up. And that means that the y value is opening up, so the y is going to be greater than or equal to 1. So let's do its inverse. It's important to establish what the domain ranges of this parabola because we're dealing with the left side here. So note, if x is less than or equal to 0, that means the range in the inverse is going to be y is less than or equal to 0. That means we're going to do the negative. So let's continue. F of x becomes a y. Switch the y to an x and an x to a y. Solve for y, so it's x minus 1. And now we do the plus minus the square root of x minus 1. Square root of y squared. Square root of y squared is y. So plus or minus root of x minus 1. This is the f of, now we got the f of negative 1, so that's its inverse. Is plus minus square root of x minus 1. But, again, in the f of x, x is less than or equal to 0, and y is greater than or equal to 1. So in the inverse, x and y, the domain x is less than or equal to 0 is the range, and the range is the domain. So x is the domain, y is the range, but we switch less than equal to 0. This becomes the range, and less than or equal to 0 becomes the range, and greater than or equal to 1 becomes the domain. So that means the f to the negative 1 of x, y is less than, so that means we're dealing with the negative. Because y is less than 0, we're dealing with negative, not the positive. And so let's work these out. The composite functions, f to the negative 1, we got the negative root of x minus 1. And we sub that into the f, so the negative of the root of x minus 1 is subbed in, so that becomes negative x minus 1 squared plus 1. And when we square, and negative times negative is positive, root of x minus 1 times itself is x minus 1. And they cancel, and I get an x. When you do a function and its inverse, then the composite is always an x. Now we have to do f to the negative 1 composite. So the one inside goes in first. So f to the negative, f of x is x squared plus 1. So we sub this into the x, which is here. So this is negative root So we're subbing it in here. So it's x squared plus 1 minus 1. So we took x squared plus 1 and subbed it right here. That gives us the root negative of the root of, they cancel, x squared. And the square root of x squared is x. Well, I got that. That's subbed into here. Now what have I got done? This is x plus 1, so x plus 1 going in here. And we have the negative. So x plus 1 minus 1, that's the root. We got a negative x. So in this case, it's the opposite of the x. So let's check that out. If we put, it seems I should have an x here, but I didn't. X minus 1, we take the negative. Okay, but x is negative. So this is a negative x, which comes out to be an x, because it's the opposite of what's in this bracket. That's x is negative. So we got that's a negative x. So it turns up to be negative of a negative is a positive. So it looks awkward, but again, x is negative here. So when you plug it in, that's a negative of the x. So the negative of a negative is positive. Looks awkward, but it works that way. Click on the like button if you like my video. Click on the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Notice is one word. Thank you for viewing my video. Hope the video helped you. Bye-bye.